Truck Talk Media.
C10 Talk, episode 271. We've got DWD from Dick Industries, Inc. Yep, you heard me right. Dick Industries, Inc. coming at you, episode 271. Enjoy the pod.
But I'm ordering an intake manifold because it's got the 250 straight six. So I'm ordering an intake manifold and a turbo exhaust manifold from 12 volt. RPM here in Lethbridge has a turbo for me and a 2-barrel Holly Sniper EFI that we're putting on this. And I know it is way less expensive to just put an LS in it. But again, we talked about before, I kind of like things that are unique, and sometimes unique costs more money.
Damn, son. Seeing is believing. And our title sponsor, United Pacific, makes seeing a whole lot easier. The crispness of the United Pacific LED headlights, taillights, marker lights, and more makes seeing and showing your truck that much better. It's time to upgrade your old dim halogens for new LED headlights, taillights, and more. They offer the brightest and latest LED technology. Headlights are available up to 1600 lumens, easy to install, and it fits right in the OEM housing. How about upgrading to sequential taillights? They're DOT approved and ready to ship today. And for you 73 to 80 GMC and Chevy Squarebody guys, they've got the new front parking lights, LED with stainless steel bezel. Think UP Car Parts. That's upcarparts.com.
Let me tell you what Melvin Post is packing right here. I've got 411 posi track out back, 750 double pumper, Edelbrock intakes, scored over 30, 11-to-1 pop-up pistons, turbojet, 390 horsepower. We're talking some fucking muscle.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
Welcome to C10 Talk, your C10 Truck podcast.
And now I have a chance to be the best, maybe the best in the world.
My old man is a television repairman. Got this ultimate set of tools. I can fix it.
I said I got 50 cents in that jukebox, and all I can hear is your mouth flapping. You hear that?
Here's your host, Ronnie Welch.
$271. You know, sometimes you just know. And with DWD, I just kind of knew. I met him last year at the Get Down, and I'd kind of followed him on social media. His, 62 Rampy had kind of come up, and I'm like, dude, this dude's a stud. And then I get to meet him, and I'm like, all right, I connected. And I was like, I could drink a beer with this guy. I could hang out with this guy. I could wrench with this guy. I could go on a road trip with this guy. I could hang out. You know what I mean? It's kind of cool. Truck people are cool. We know that. And DWD fits the bill for sure. So we're lucky to have him in our scene. And now, he brought Rampy out to the Get Down, and he took it all over. He hoonigan, and, he made a name for himself with that truck. Well, now he's got a Squarebody. So I thought, hey, let's get you on. Let's get your own episode. And we did. So I hope you dig it. I know I did. I have a good time kind of connecting and getting to know him a little bit more. So I hope you guys do as well. Good dude, doing awesome things up there in Lethbridge, Alberta, having a good time, and pretty cool to connect. And that's what's so rad about the pod, and obviously the shows that we attend, and we get to meet new people, new faces, make new friends, hang out with old friends, and always have a good time. So speaking of shows, having a good time, it looks like everybody had a great time out at C10 Nationals, Tennessee. Looked packed. So I hope everybody had a great time and everything ran well and you made it to where you needed to go to. This next up here, we've got October 20th and 21st in Denton Farm Park in Denton, North Carolina. So that's a new location for the C10 Fall Revival, October 20th and 21st, North Carolina. Check out their page, C10 Fall Revival, for all the details. I think, yeah, they did. They announced that they have a swap meet now, so that's going to be pretty bitchin'. Then obviously the granddaddy, the big daddy, the one, the only, the biggest Chevy GM truck show. I don't care what anybody says. Right here in our backyard, November 10th and 11th, the Get Down, the 13th annual craziness. It's going to be crazy. Talked to the big cat today a little bit. he's stoked. It's going to be insane. Bigger than last year, if you can even imagine. I mean, the amount of vendors that he has is like over 200 this year. I think he capped it at 140 last year. So, yeah, this is the Super Bowl of C10 world that we live in. And it's going to be November 10th and 11th at the Cardinal Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. If you haven't made it, get it on your bucket list. Get out here and enjoy the Get Down. We'll also be at SEMA right before that. So for those of you out there that are able to attend, we'll be at SEMA. Of course, I'll bring you some coverage, and it'll be a good time. And then December, I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff going on, but the one thing I do need to try to make it happen, but the Hot Rod Power Tour for the West Coast. Again, they're going from Cali to Vegas, back to Pomona. And I think that's cool. I think they're spreading their wings a little bit, saying, hey, we need to make something happen out here on the West Coast. Everybody sees what happens on the East Coast. I think the difference, and this would be a fun discussion, is when you talk to people, and for those of you who listen are from the East Coast, you guys can hit 5 cities in 5 days, like big cities, right? Well, we're so spread out here, it's a little tougher to do, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But either way, it's cool that they're doing it, and if I can get some content out of that, I'll definitely reach out to them and see if we can't make that happen. All right? Okay, let's get right into the episode with old DWD, Wayne Dick Industries, Inc. If you don't follow him already, please do. He did text me today, and he's pretty stoked, but he got a letter, email, something from Hot Wheels that he's been invited, accepted. So he's got a beat feed, I think, out to Cali and show off Rampy, which you look at Rampy and you're thinking, dude, this is a Hot Wheels, right? I mean, the thing's insane. And good for him, all that work and effort. I don't know how that all shakes out where you're thinking, shit, I'm in the middle of a project. I've got work to do, so on and so forth. And you get the call and you're like, well, I'm in Lethbridge, Alberta. I got to get down to Cali. So I think he's going to make it happen. I'm sure we'll follow along on his social. But either way, give him a follow if you don't already. Dick Industries, Inc. I don't know how much Dick accounts you follow, but it'll pop up and you'll know it's Dick Industries, Inc. No brainer, right? Pun intended. All right, guys, thanks again so much for tuning in. If you didn't get a chance, check out 270 with Jason Vanetta Fab, and then also on OBS, the Little Bro Pod, we did have Justin and Eli Griffin from Twin States Hot Rod. They're out in Mississippi. That was a really fun one, too. I was behind the mic hosting that one. But either way, you got lots of content for cruising, for working in the shop. For us out here, we're getting into that prime weather, and get your trucks out and have a good time. For a lot of you, you're putting them away right now. I actually had orange slice out today. I took my daughter to breakfast, and it didn't turn out so good. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I was on the freeway cruising 75, and all of a sudden I just heard this loud whine, and I'm like, shit, is that us or is it cars around us? Kind of pulled back, let the cars that were by me, we're 4 deep on the freeway in Phoenix, and they all kind of take off, and sure enough, I'm the only truck sitting there, and I'm like, it's us for sure. So we kept cruising, and I think another mile or two, my gauges started freaking out, overheating. Looks like I'm like, okay, now I'm getting hot. I can kind of smell some stuff. So I'm like, all right, I got to get off the freeway. Get off the freeway. I still think I only probably went like 2.5 miles. Get off the freeway, get behind somebody. I'm kind of stuck. Finally get turned off and get off the road, turn it off, let it chill for a little bit. I did pop the hood. I opened pull the dipstick out, and yeah, not good. Looks like the oil was really hot, smoking. So I don't know, by the time I got it back on the trailer or went home, got my truck, got my trailer, and got it home, everything had cooled down quite a bit. So I'm thinking it might be something electrical. I don't know if those fans, my electric fans, took a shit, and now my motor got really, really hot. I mean, it was nice today. It was 80 something, so it's not like it was 120 out, but I don't know. I'm getting ready to go on vacation. I'll look into it. I do know that I have a fuse that comes off my battery that's melted, and that my ground on my battery had kind of melted where your battery goes into like the battery post. So something electrical got pissed off. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the 454 and old orange slice will be coming out or what'll happen, but I need to chase down the electrical first, and then I'll kind of go from there. So if there's a mistake, if there's something that goes on and we could pass it on and you guys can learn from it, we're all better off for that for sure. So, all right, let's get into the pod. Give DWD, Dick Industries, Inc. a follow. Enjoy the pod. Have a great week. Late. All right, all right. What up, C10 Nation? Coming to you, Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. I love interviewing Canadians, the Canucks. I don't know, Wayne, if you're truly a Canadian. I mean, although you are, but you spend a lot of time in the States. So we've got Wayne from Dick Industries. You might know him for his 62 Ramp truck. He was at Dino's last year. We interviewed him for coverage from Dino's. Rampy, Hoonigan, a ton of great content. But we got you today, and we're going to talk about your Squarebody. So welcome to C10 Talk, brother.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I enjoy being here.
All right. So yeah, let's, I mean, do we talk Alberta? Do we talk Canada? Do we talk trucks? I mean, what's going on since we had you almost a year ago? You were down at the Get Down, having a great time. You come down to the States a lot. It does seem like, I know you do some conversions on vehicles. You've kind of figured it out, that high desert love. There's a lot of trucks still up there. How are the trucks in Canada versus in the States? Are you, if you're sitting on Facebook Marketplace, do you look in Canada, or do you kind of bump down to the States a little bit?
I typically will search predominantly in the Northwest, Spokane area, all across Montana, into Idaho, Eastern Idaho, things like that. As far as Canada goes, it's pretty tough because trucks of the vintage that I like, let's go as old as 67 to 79 type C10s. They're quite rusty up here. I mean, they use salt and calcium and things up here. And you can go into Montana and you can still find people daily driving, which is kind of one of my favorite things about going down into the northern US is people still drive old Chevys. They drive old Fords. They drive the old Dodges. And it just, up here, you don't see that as daily drivers.
Yeah. So it is cool that you can find so many. Refresh us again too on your Ramp truck. Wasn't that sitting for years and years and you had went by it and finally you guys just were able to make the connection on that truck?
Yeah. So that truck I actually found while I was in university in Idaho. And at the time it was at a wrecking yard. And one of the things I did to make money while I was going to school was I would go through the wrecking yards and just pick up random parts that I knew I could sell on eBay and make a profit on. And I'd go through the wrecking yards, once every couple months and see if there's any new inventory. I'd buy the odd things and list them on eBay and sell them. And in Charlie's Wrecking Yard, it was called, in Idaho Falls, this Ramp truck was sitting there. And I inquired about it, and it was $700 with no title, which, being from Canada, I actually had no idea what it took to get a title. Wasn't sure I wanted to get into that mix. And at the time I was living on $1,000 a month. So paying $700 for a truck that I knew was a project truck it just wasn't in the cards, man.
And then, so you got it. And then did you end up circling back because it was still there once you got to the point where you could afford it?
No. So the following, after, I'm talking over a couple year period, I went back to go through this wrecking yard in the spring, and the fence was down and there was a crusher there and everything was gone. And I just thought that was it. Like I missed out on it. I lost it, whatever. But the truck actually ended up somehow in Boise, Idaho. Somebody obviously bought it. Like years later, I'm searching on Facebook Marketplace in Eastern Idaho, and it came up, and I knew it was the truck because I could tell from there used to be a hood ornament that was just off center. It looks like they tried to install a windshield washer squirter at one time. And like in the first picture on the ad, it showed the front of the truck. And I was like, that's it. Like, that's the truck. So I called him up and said, he was asking $2,800, but they had a title. And I said, yeah, I'll take it. So I sent the money to a buddy of mine that lived in Idaho Falls, and he ripped over to Boise and grabbed it and brought it up. And that was about 9 years ago.
Just crazy. You were meant to be. Yeah. Yeah. So cool. Well, and I would say that 62 Corvair, for the audience, if you can't picture it, it's kind of old school patina, white with the red stripe. He's got, it's just got massive power, and it's such a burnout machine. And I still don't even, I remember sitting in it at Dino's, and you're like, cause you're a big guy, right? Like 6'3", freaking 240. And you're like, dude, I can fit in this thing. He's smiling at the 240. Maybe he's a little bit more, but he's a big fucker. And so
across the scales at almost 270, man.
yeah, so he's a big dude. So it's funny, and I remember you saying like, no, dude, these things are so comfortable. And I remember sitting in the front of that thing, and it was just like so roomy compared to what you would think.
Yeah, it is. It is deceiving now that I have, like, I've got quite a few miles on it now, and I would argue with myself now about the comfort. I've settled in enough where I no longer will say pridefully that it's comfortable on long rides. It's work. It's absolute work, but it's still fun enough that, it doesn't hinder me wanting to take it places.
Yeah. Would you say that's just because of the suspension from the perspective of being somewhat of a cab over?
Somewhat, that you're riding on the front wheels, so you literally feel every bump. There is no buffer between, where you're sitting in a conventional style vehicle. You've got frame flex in between you and the suspension, and different things to absorb that, where literally your ass is riding on the front wheel in this thing, and it will pile drive you sometimes.
Oh, I bet. Another thing too, that before we really get into your Squarebody, but it's funny is not only do you have your ramp truck, you've got a second gen Bronco that's super sweet. I see you posting like FJ40s. So you've got kind of a hankering for really just rad stuff. And I think our generation does, because you didn't know it at the time, when you were in high school, and all these rad, from FJs to Land Cruisers to Broncos, first, second, third gen, obviously all the trucks that we love so much, Blazers, SUVs, so many rad cars. And now you get to, play with a lot of that. And obviously you're not just like, hey, I'm not a one trick pony. I like it all.
Yeah, I think the variety and uniqueness, I'll call it, for lack of better terms, that's what keeps me excited to work on things. I've never been a production line kind of guy where it's like, okay, I've really mastered this certain skill. I just want to do that over and over again. For me, it's always about pushing my own abilities to see what I can do. And I have, a bit of an odd taste in things, because for me, if it's something I can look at, and for example, we took the FJ to Jeep Safari earlier this year, and in a sea of really, really badass Jeeps, this old 77 FJ40 just stood out and drew the crowds and drew the attention, and was able to keep up for most areas with its limited suspension and open differentials and stuff. But I just, we do have the second gen Bronco. I've got a 65 Galaxy that my dad bought in 71 or 72. And I also have this C10 Crusty here, but we've got an FJ45, which is the pickup version of this. And I've had the 40 Econoline cab over, but it got to a point where I need to focus and finish something, and until I built Rampy, I had a really bad track record of buying a lot of stuff for it and getting it to a point and then like sell it, I see a chance to turn a buck, and getting rid of it, So finishing the Corvair and driving that has really just upped my own level of what I want to do. And I've got a certain taste in things. I like old school. I like the old school graphics, and just making something that isn't designed to do what I want it to do it and do it well.
It's funny when you think about it from the perspective of now. You could see like when I was a kid, I think for all of us, I used to always just like, okay, especially traveling as a kid through Montana, you'd see like me and my brother would play a game. Okay, what car's coming, what truck's coming, and try to first one to could guess that style, right? Okay, that's a Squarebody. And because you were just driving all over the country, you know what I mean? And yeah, and so now it's funny, I'll see like a Dodge, and I have to really I have to wait longer to realize what the hell it is I'm looking at, only based upon that everything looks so much alike now. So like I feel like these auto manufacturers just get together and it's like the shit is all the same. It's not that much different. I mean, I could tell a Ford from a GMC and a GMC from a Chevy and things like that, but in our, when you think about some of those 60s, 70s, 80s vehicles, they were distinctly different. Where and nowadays shit is just all the same.
Yep, 100%.
So I think when you, as like you talked about the graphics and the styles, it's one of those things where no wonder we're drawn, even if it's an old 4Runner, even if it's a second gen Dodge, it's old metal is just awesome stuff. And you're just like, wow. And I kind of think it's cool where you get to see some of these younger kids who, like, let's say they're 18 to 25 and they're like, oh no, I like that old stuff. I like that style. I like that, because that's going to keep this whole thing going.
100%.
If they can afford it, right? And they don't have to go to the junkyard and pay $700 or wait for it to turn back up. But the struggle is real, and it's cool to hear that journey. And it's like, hey, I think more so than ever, where I feel like when I was a kid, it's like, hey, mom, I want this, Back to the Future, 87 Toyota. Yeah, no, you're not getting it, right? Yeah. Well, nowadays, I feel like parents, hopefully, if a kid took a hankering to something that was old and cool. For example, I think my son, he's got an 86 S10 Blazer, and I'm like, dude, you're not selling that. And he's like, no, I got to sell it. I'm going to make a quick buck. And I'm like, no, because you're going to regret it. So don't sell it, dude. Sell your newer vehicle and keep this, because you can get, we can't drive down the road without seeing, he drives a little Toyota Highlander. We can't drive down the road without seeing a freaking dark blue Highlander. But when's the last time you saw original paint 86 S10 Blazer? You just don't see them. So you're going to regret it. Don't sell it.
Yeah, 100%.
Our parents were like, sell this thing, get rid of it, get something practical. My mom, get something practical. You don't need that thing, but okay. So by day, you do a lot of calibrations. Walk us through a little bit of that.
Yeah. So we do speedometer conversions for the export market. That's the main gig. And I own a company called Alter Speedo, and it's based out of Lethbridge, Alberta. And we essentially service, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba for the vehicles that are being exported from Canada into the United States. And you'd think with the newer vehicles that it wouldn't be a big deal. Like how can I even have a job right now? Because everything's, digital and you can switch it over within the factory settings. However, in Canada, our icons are bilingual to deal with Eastern Canada, or not to deal with. That's maybe some of my bias coming through. To be inclusive of Eastern Canada. And that being said, for example, for your brake warning system, in Canada, it's just an exclamation mark in parentheses. But in order for it to be compliant with US standards in the Department of Transportation, it has to say brake. So we have to sometimes program in and excite an already existing LED that can't be done at the dealerships, can't be done at typical repair shops, can't be done through scanners. Like it's stuff where we have to pull apart the speedometers and get in there and sometimes do some soldering, other times, pull off the EEPROM file or whatever and go in there and change things. Now there's also some where if the battery's unplugged, it defaults back to kilometers. So in that scenario, we typically program those as well so that it doesn't do that, because that confuses people.
I always think of old school U-Haul, when we could tell a U-Haul truck was from Canada because it'd be all kilometers, versus miles. And back then there was no conversion. I guess maybe if you were going to take it out of the junkyard and put a different Speedo in the truck, but I guess that's how they probably did it back in the day.
Yeah. So we run into that not very often, but on the old analog style odometers, we have to buy a US cluster that's within, the same amount of mileage. It always has to be higher mileage. It can never be lower mileage. And then we can install that and make it work that way.
How'd you get into that?
It's a funny story. So I used to own a couple portable car crushers with a buddy of mine. And we went around and did mostly farm cleanup, generational farm cleanup where, the grandpas gathered all the old tractors and combines and every truck that the farm ever bought, and they put it in the back 40. And then, their son did. And now our generation is taken over, and sometimes even the next generation. and they're not going out in the back 40 and picking up steel to build something. They'll buy new steel because time is money. You can't afford to sit there and get the rust off things and do this and do that. So, I guess that was in 2011 we started that business, and we traveled and did farm cleanup for like solid up until 2017, when the price of steel was low enough for an extended period of time that I decided to get out of it. But let's go back to, I believe it was 2015 or 16. I hit up a buddy of mine that owns a trucking company, and I said, hey, look, like when it gets so cold, I don't like to fire up my equipment. There's the hydraulics. It's just hard on everything, right? And stuff gets buried by snow, so you can't do a real good scrap metal cleanup on site. So I just said, if you've got somebody that, wants to go on holidays or they're sick or whatever, I'll sit in the truck and I'll haul some cars, and it'll be beneficial to both of us. And so when I did that, I noticed some of the vehicles going south were in miles and some were already in kilometers. So I just hit up some of the dealers that we dropped off vehicles at, and they said, it's a huge pain in the ass if it's not converted, because we have to then hire someone to do this swap. And usually that means somebody comes and pulls it out, and then we ship them off. They get converted, they ship them back, things get broken, clusters get lost. And they said, it's a pain. So they were on board with me inquiring about that. So I talked to my buddy that owned the trucking company, and he's like, yeah, I got no problem with that. So I bought a bunch of clusters off of eBay, and I went down to Utah to an existing speedometer company and kind of got the ins and outs of what to do and what not to do, and then practice on those clusters that I bought, and literally started a business overnight.
I mean, out of necessity, right?
Out of necessity. Something that I would have never imagined there was, that niche market for. And I mean, that we've been doing it now this is our 9th year.
Wow. Yeah. Do you feel like as the technology and the newer vehicles gets going, is it tougher and tougher to keep up with, because you got to remember how to do the old ones. You got to remember, you learn how to do the new ones. Is that challenging to keep up?
So it's not challenging to remember the old ones, because typically, the oldest stuff we're seeing right now, I'd say, is that 2014 to current. And we've done so many of them that there's really nothing new that any of those vehicles could throw at us. As far as learning the new stuff, yeah, there is a steep learning curve, because, we typically, the speedo market, as far as programmers and people that do the conversions, it's very tight-lipped. Nobody wants to share secrets. Nobody wants to help each other out. But there is a few people that I've become friends with over the years that we help each other out. And so, we'll work together. It's like, hey, I got this. Have you seen one of these? No, I haven't. Well, I have. Here, let me show you what you need to do to get this done. And it's funny. We just got one of the brand new Corvettes, and I looked at it and I was like, there's no damn way I'm pulling this thing apart. So I took it to GM, and they said, yeah, it's like a 3-hour job to pull it out. I said, why don't you go ahead and do that? I'm just gonna, just take that charge and charge it to my customer, because there's, if I'm spending 6 hours, 3 hours for remove and 3 hours to reinstall, I mean, there's another 20 speedometers we could have done in that period of time. And I mean, they just can't afford to pay us that difference to have that one done. So you kind of have to always be on your toes. And same with programming. There's certain things right now where we have to have a box sent out to us that plugs in, and it has to be plugged in via Ethernet cable, so that a remote business can bypass the security of certain Jeep Cherokees, the new Grand Wagoneers, and like Ram Rebels, the kind of higher end Ram pickups. And yeah, some of them are a big pain in the butt.
You would almost think that the manufacturer would even want you to be current, right? Because they know that they're going to have import vehicles. And I would think that, the US would be like, yeah, they need to be this way. And the manufacturer would be like, all right, here's our preferred vendors. These guys are trained. They went through these classes, but it doesn't sound like you have the manufacturer support quite the way that I'm envisioning it. Or do you?
There's zero manufacturer support, based on the fact that they don't like to transfer the warranty. For example, Chrysler products, when they're exported, to my knowledge, still there's no warranty on those vehicles. With the stuff that's 2 years or newer with GM, a lot of that stuff we have done by a company called Specmo, because they are the only company that is allowed to do conversions to maintain the warranty on the new GM products. So there is also frowned upon for Canadian dealers to sell to US customers. It's in fact, you can't do that. So they have to be registered in Canada for, I believe, a minimum of 6 months. And depending on if it's Chev, Dodge, or Ford, anywhere from 12,000 to 15,000 kilometers on them before they're allowed to be exported.
Yeah, there was a time, I think I would say like early or late 1990s, 98 to 2002-ish, where guys were going up to Canada and getting trucks because they weren't paying a tax, and then they were having to figure out how to convert them. Yeah, it just became a pain. And at the end of the day, these guys, let's say they saved like $4,000 or something. I can't remember. I do remember guys I worked with, 2 or 3 of them went to Canada to do that. And you're like, at the end of the day, they're trying to evade the taxes. And maybe it was a little bit cheaper because based upon the dollar and so on and so forth. But I think at the end of the day, it wasn't worth it. When they factored in just the pain of what it was and so on and so forth, it was probably not worth it.
Yeah. Well, you've got to remember as well that the trip up there and their time spent, searching for the vehicles and, flying up here and, oh my gosh, that's not what it looked like online. Now what? So now you're going to spend couple days scrambling trying to find something so that it's not a wasted trip. I did that myself. I've bought vehicles. Well, just about every vehicle I own was bought down in the US and brought it up here, but I've done it enough that it's quite seamless when I do it. But if for the average person to do it, I'll tell you right now, the border on both sides, Canada and the US, has zero willingness to help you figure that out. If you don't have it figured out, they will turn you around 100% of the time.
All right. That's crazy. Okay. So let's get into Krusty.
So you bought a C10 and it either had AC at one time or it wasn't even an option. Well, Vintage Air has the solution for you. Their SureFit kits are designed to place the evaporator and hoses behind the dash for a factory clean look. The Vintage Air SureFit kits are the best value and the most completely engineered air conditioning system you can install in your C10. Damn, son, the choice is obvious. VintageAir.com.
Need C10 parts? Well, here at Pro, we actually have trucks. We build them, we drive them, and we deal with them every day. It's just part of who we are. We carry the best products for your truck project from the major name brands such as QA1, React, Painless, Dakota, Beltec, Borgeson, Bear, and even more. Give us a call or check us out on the web.
You've heard me talk about my gauges. Dakota Digital. I love them. Dakota Digital has the best gauges for our trucks. These kits are complete with sensors for any engine. They look just like the stock clusters, but have all the technology you'd expect from Dakota Digital. You can change the lighting colors, customize the reading in the message centers, and do it all from the mobile app. That's right, the HDX and RTX series have Bluetooth technology. It's like a modern truck, but even better in a classic. Dakota Digital is absolutely the best in aftermarket gauges, so check them out at dakotadigital.com. dakotadigital.com.
Okay, so let's get into Krusty. I think at different points, I think I've seen it's from Idaho. And how'd you end up with this? Is it a 73, 74?
So this is a 74 C10. It's actually originally from Billings, Montana.
There you go. So that thing was running around when I was a kid. That is so crazy. So I was born in 73, and to think that thing was probably less than 15 miles from where I grew up is so funny.
Yeah. Original owner. I have a stack of paperwork and files for this thing that it came with. I bought it during COVID. I paid $800 for this thing, and it was bone stock. It's got the 250 straight 6, 3 on the tree, which I love. I have zero intention of changing that. It's very drivable. It's user friendly. It does not have a lot of power, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But I drove it for a couple of years. And the reason it's got Idaho plates on it is I have a brother-in-law and sister-in-law in Idaho, and I don't have an address there. So I can't actually register a vehicle down there. And this was down in Billings. I traveled to Billings often enough that I just left it there. And during COVID, especially, I had to drive a big rig down because that was the only way you could cross the borders commercially. So I'd hit up my buddy and haul a load of vehicles down, and then I'd have Krusty to run around in, because at the time you could rent a vehicle during COVID for less than $300 a day for, a compact. And this was just handy to have down there. And so I left it there, and it had the topper on it, or camper shell, since new. I still have that. The snow load was starting to make it collapse. So what started this whole rabbit hole of shortening it was like, well, I need to rebuild this camper shell because I do like the look of it on there. But if I'm going to do that, I'm going to make it a short bed. I love long beds. I think they look great lowered, but I like short beds better. I mean, that's really what it boils down to.
Yeah, so you're normal. I mean, the thing about a long bed is they do look, and Krusty does look great lowered. The style that you have, it's just, and I know people out there are just, they love their long beds, and I respect that, right? Long beds they do have a purpose, but a short bed just looks so good. It just does. And when you go low, I think on a long bed, my opinion is just that. If it is just my opinion, but the lower you go, the longer it looks. And for whatever reason, when you've got a shorty and you go low, it doesn't change it for me. And you put big hoops on it, depending on what wheels you're running, and you can get to where it's looking really Hot Wheels like. I posted Orange Slice the other day, and somebody was like, God, it looks just like a Hot Wheels. And you're like, that's exactly what I want it to look like. And I love the way a Hot Wheels looks, and so it'll be interesting to see, because if you are now, were you about to say that because you had to repair your topper, and I think you did a post, I know you did, I saw it, where the snow and the weight and the top was all kind of folding. At that point, did you say, I want to keep this OG topper, but I'm going to have to repair it, and it was easier to shorten it, and that's why you're shortening it? Or what were you kind of, what were you leading us with that?
It had to be done. The topper had to be rebuilt. And I'd always been toying with the idea in my head of shortening this thing since I got it. And here's the reason, is because one of the main reasons I show so much of this truck on my social media pages is that I bought this truck for $800. And I mean, the suspension that I put on, it's got a Western chassis, 6.5-inch front, 8-inch rear drop, but I didn't actually install the spring hangers out back because my rear springs are sagged out enough from carrying that heavy topper around its entire life that I didn't need to, And when I pulled that topper off to fix it, I was like, well, now's there's no better time than now to shorten this. And I've always wanted a short bed since high school, because I had one. I grew up, I drove an 84 Scottsdale, every day, 2-wheel drive short bed truck. I love that truck. And I sold it in my early 20s and always kind of kicked myself, and then when it came time, of course, you tell the guy, hey, if you ever want to sell that, sell it back to me. But I think I sold it in 2000 and what would have been 97 or 98, and for 3,800. And I think in the early 2000s it was already like 7,800 was the difference of what he wanted when I went to buy it back. And I was like, yeah, that's not in the cards for me. So with this one here, it's like, okay, let's turn this into a short bed. And I want to challenge myself, because I have shortened actually a couple of 66 Chevy pickups, but it was back then we found the box for it. So all we had to do was move that rear suspension forward. Well, one of them was a leaf spring, the other had those trailing arms. And the trailing arms, we just had to move those forward to different mounting holes that I believe were already in that frame. And then we put a different box on it. So it was challenging, but not as challenging as welding up sheet metal, which I've learned, over the last 6 months of doing this, which, there's way faster guys at this than me, but I am meticulous when it comes to fitting the sheet metal together. And I'm really trying to improve my skill on welding. There's a few panels on Rampy that I need to replace. And people have asked, like, what on earth are you doing? Why would you waste so much time on this? And for me, education is not a waste of time. You know, I went to, I'll tell you, 7 years of university with no paper to show in the end. But I don't see that as a waste of time because of the people I met, the knowledge I gained, and just the life experience I had. I don't need a piece of paper to be successful. You know, it's what did I pull from that and what can I use in my daily life to just better myself and better my skills. So with this here, you know, I've got to do some welding on Rampy, which you can't buy a bedside for. You know, you can't buy new sheet metal for. So I had to learn on something that no better canvas than that's quite rusty on the box. You know, I've still got to do above the rear fender wells. You know, the box is mostly stitched up now. But it's just forcing me to learn something that, you know, I was almost scared to do. And still, like, I fall into that self-doubt once in a while where it's like, gosh, what have I done? Like, why am I going so deep into this? You know, but at the end of the day, it's one stitch at a time on this and I'll get it done.
Well, and how awesome, right? It's an $800 truck, and granted, the value might be worth a little bit more, but you're right. It's like I can get a new bedside, I can get an aftermarket bedside, I can have fun and learn. And a lot of times it's just that journey, right? It's like, hey, I like to learn, and why not, you know, do it? And really, to me, the encouragement is to the audience, because the struggle that we see now is, hey, you probably can't afford a truck anymore, right? So at one point, $800, maybe $3,000. So some kids out there, maybe even a guy who's 50 years old, who's like, I always wanted a Squarebody, I always wanted a 67 to 72. Well, you could find it, and maybe you wanted a short bed, so you can do that and still have one of these trucks, and you can drive it, you can wrench on weekends. There's a lot that you can still do with these trucks. It may be, you know, the long play versus somebody who's got a real cherry truck, but they're still out there, and you're still able to manipulate them, have fun, grow, and, you know, just don't get too far over your head. Whereas you have, you know, obviously a skill set, you've got a shop, you've got different things available to you. I just hate to see guys, and I think you're very encouraging, and this process of Krusty is very encouraging. I just hate to see guys get too far in over their head, because, and it's really an attribute that you're saying, hey, you're kind of coaching through your social media. Hey, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm doing it. Because a lot of guys, I hate to see where it looks so easy, and some builders just do so much of only the good. And then some guys like, oh, I'm going to do that. And then they get way in over their head. Whereas you're like, hey, you know, you can do this. Audience, you can pick up an old truck, you can cut it down, you can do this if you have the means, a friend, a shop, you know, different things. So you have to kind of put that whole thing into the equation, and that's what you're doing. And you are enabling, you are encouraging with the process that you have.
That's one of the, you know, there's a bunch of different reasons why I do this, but one of the reasons is, in the end, I mean, now we're getting a little carried away with where this is going, but you can buy an $800 truck, you can buy an $1,100 suspension, and literally $400 brand new from these tires from, I can't remember where in Billings, and you can be driving a pretty badass looking truck and you know, save some more money, do some more mods. You know, I also have highlighted when there's certain things that I'm not comfortable with. You know, when it came to the frame, I'm a good welder, but I'm not a great welder. So when it came for the frame, you know, I sectioned it the exact way. I watched the brothers links on YouTube, and I sectioned it the exact same way they did, and I welded it together. But when it came to do the fish plates on the outside, I had my buddy Joel come in. He's a ticketed welder, and I thought, you know what? If there's ever any question about security or safety in this thing, this will put that to rest, because this is far beyond what it was structurally before I even cut it apart now. And, you know, same with inviting my buddy Phil in to show me how to hammer and dolly. Yeah, I've picked up a hammer and dolly 100 times and bashed away at stuff and end up going backwards because there was no technique that I knew to follow. So, you know, don't be afraid to ask your friends, and don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. And And I show the dirty welds. I show the stuff where it's like, oh man, that isn't the best. But you know what? I'm just going to try and be better on the next one. And, there's some flack you catch for that online. But at the end of the day, I just tell people, number one, my favorite response when people complain or say I'm an idiot is I just put, please hold for our complaint department, because I don't want to engage things like that. I don't want to engage negativity. I want this to be a positive experience when people interact with me. And it's, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, but there's always a way to correct it. And there's always someone that you can ask to help you be better at it.
Well, great thing about, sheet metal and welding is it can always be ground down, fixed, re-welded, new panels. So sky's the limit. And just that you're willing to say, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm learning, jump in, have a good time, watch what I'm doing. Here's the plans. And this is the fun that we're having.
Yeah.
Well, I know you talked about this too. And we figured this out when we cut down Orange Slice. Metal Locks did the bed sides, but when you look at a long bed, they're made to be cut down. So it's literally like it's stamped, the same. And it was cool to kind of look back and you look at a long bed, and for the audience, right behind the cab, the front, if you will, kind of by the bulkhead of your long bed, you'll have this longer space on the bedside, and you can kind of see the way it's all been cut out, and you could see where it's like, oh shit, that's where they added that from the dimpling, and then you cut that out, and now you've got the same exact markings as a short bed, and the back is the same. It's all kind of formed out of the same type of dies, a long bed and a short bed, and I know you alluded to that. I think in the back you had a dimple that you were using. Maybe it would have been the front. I can't remember, but I remember you talking about that a little bit.
Yeah, right at the bulkhead where the floor meets the bedside and the front. When you pull your bulkhead off with the bolts, your front bolt, just behind that 14 inches is another dimple there on a long bed that is made for when they stamp it out as a short bed. So I don't know if the dies, if they put in, a 6 foot piece of metal for the 6 foot beds and an 8 foot piece of metal for the 8 foot beds, and it's the same stamp, or it's just, they already had it for the short beds and they made these for the long beds too. I'm not exactly sure, how that process goes, but they literally were stamped on the same machine, I'll say.
And a core support's the same. It'll have little dimples, and you'd be like, oh, this is where they dimpled it if you were going to get a dual battery for the driver's side. Or so there's all kinds of little things by the time they got to these, the 73 plus 80, all the way to 91, obviously. But there's certain things where they figured it out, and you're like, oh shit, there is a little dimple there. That must be for this. And even you kind of alluded to it with the 60 to 66s where, sometimes a chassis, you're like, oh, this is where this was for the rear trailing arms. Oh, this was for, because it was going to be a leaf spring truck, or this is, so it is funny to see that it's not like it's completely different assembly lines. It's all made the same, and they're just literally adding options, drilling, certain things, certain points, and you're figuring it out as you go. I mean, hell, Metal Locks cut down 68 GMC and made a Blazer out of it. So it's, it was at Dino's last year. So it's not like, this shit's that different.
Yeah, that was an incredible, example of fabrication and his ability, man. When I saw that thing, I was like, I couldn't believe what it was and where it was at. And that just gives me inspiration. Hopefully one day I can be a fraction of that.
Well, it's funny too, because I get a lot of flack, that I get on social media and different things. And I laugh at this is, oh, that's not a C10. And it's like, they're all C10s. Okay. Just realize that that's just the generic name we use for a Chevy truck from 1960 to 1991, 87, however you want to look at it. The cab is the same. It's all the same. So, oh, that's a K10. Oh, that's a K30. I know it's a K30, but it's just what we use. These trucks were all made different points of their career, their lives, whatever it was, that we're just using that generic, name. But it is funny. People really get like, well, you said that. And it's like, well, that's this is this. And you're like, I know it's that. It's just generic. We're simplifying things. Why don't you do K10 talk? It is K10 talk. It can be anything talk. It doesn't matter. Old Chevy truck talk. I don't care.
Yeah. no.
So what's the plan then? You've got it shortened. Have you already shortened? I don't remember seeing that you've already shortened the camper, or you're rebuilding the camper.
No, the camper is just on the outside of the shop right now. We'll get to that eventually. It's not really my main focus right now. So this is a C10 Talk exclusive, man. I'm gonna lay it all out.
Do I need like the breaking news?
Here, Krusty is about to die. Actually, Krusty will be no more in a matter of weeks.
Okay.
The rollout for Krusty is going to be actually changed to Deadwood. Will be the new name. So I've got some fender badges being made that say Deadwood 10, where the custom 10 used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I am ordering. I haven't ordered it yet, but I'm ordering an intake manifold because it's got the 250 straight six. So I'm ordering an intake manifold and a turbo exhaust manifold from 12 volt. RPM here in Lethbridge has a turbo for me and a 2-barrel Holly Sniper EFI that we're putting on this. And I know it is way less expensive to just put an LS in it. But again, we talked about before, I kind of like things that are unique, and sometimes unique costs more money. I'm fortunate enough at this point in my life that I'm okay with that. Not always, but in this scenario, because the truck was so inexpensive and things like that, you know, it isn't outside of the value of this truck yet to do these things to it. You know, I've reached out to gear vendors, Overdrive. I haven't heard back from them yet, because my favorite thing about this truck, other than the seats, is the 3-speed on the column, man. I grew up with that in an old Mercury pickup, and you just don't see those trucks around anymore. And I do not want to change that. I would like to have one extra gear for overdrive. So that's why I reached out to gear vendors. But I mean, 250 turbo, inline 6, and the 3-speed on the column, and just with the trim. So I found a guy in Medicine Hat, actually, which is about an hour and a half from Lethbridge, selling the original trim off his pickup because he repainted it and decided to buy an aftermarket setup. And so I bought that trim for $500. It's for a long box, but I'll just cut it down so it fits the short bed. And a buddy of mine in town has a graphics and printing business. We're going to do a distressed barnwood looking wood grain vinyl in the middle here. And as far as the wheels go, I at this point, we're going to stick with the 15s on it. I do love your wheels, and I do love that Hot Wheels look. But at this stage, I haven't found the one that I think I would like. We may put a 10-inch hoop on the rear wheels just to maintain that stock look, but have a little wider tire out back. But at the end of the day, this is a really good driving truck, even as low as it is, which is surprising. It handles well, it drives nice, it's smooth, it's straight, it doesn't pull, and I just want to make it a little bit quicker, and maybe we'd be able to do some burnouts with it.
Well, I love the name. What were your thoughts on that? And when you think Deadwood, and you think, obviously I get the wood in the middle, but are you thinking when you visualize this build, when I'm listening to you talk, I'm also, and for the audience, he's sitting in front of the truck's right behind him. I'm seeing the camper, the topper on as well. So I think when you visualize Deadwood, aka R.I.P. Krusty, and now the topper, the wheels you've chosen, which are the stockers, maybe you can get a little more depth out of it, but that actually really goes with it, especially when it has an I6 250 inline with the 3 on the tree. It's the topper, the stock steelies, the caps, that all kind of flows together.
Yeah. It for me, when I think of Deadwood, and it's funny, I was just there a couple of weekends ago on the Red Line run with Rampy, and what a unique little town, man. I'd never been there before. You know, I've been through Sturgis and that area a number of times through the Black Hills, but never actually done the jaunt down to Deadwood there. And what a unique town. And you know, this has been on my mind for the last year, changing this name. Krusty was always kind of a joke, how crusty the bed looked and stuff. And where we're going with this, Krusty just doesn't do this truck justice as far as, how I want to, I guess, talk to the truck, man. This kind of stuff speaks to me. I've got a shirt from 1320 Video that says electric cars have no soul. And I fully believe that these vehicles do have a type of soul to them. If you've ever driven a carbureted vehicle and it's left you on the side of the road and you give it a pep talk and it fires up, like, what other explanation is there, man? Really, there's every vehicle like this starts differently. It has different characteristics, and it just, this truck started speaking to me, for lack of better terms, and I feel like I was doing it an injustice if I kept it Krusty and didn't change it to Deadwood. Deadwood just seems like a badass name, and for a straight 6.3 on the tree, I may be biased, but I think this is going to be a pretty badass little truck.
I love it. And it's funny too, because that soul has my soul, right? Where somebody will find something and drag it out of a field and give it a whole new life, whether it's cut down or not. This thing just cruising around Billings, sitting there, whatever, it gets a whole new lease on life. So that becomes the soul as well. Some old boy had it, he drove it. In my mind, I see this lunch pail with the, kind of the oblong lid every day sitting there. This guy drives it to and fro work. He's blue collar, and he, sells it. Family sells it. Whoever sells it to you, $800, but it's a whole new lease on life. So whatever the name is going to be, that soul, it just revitalizes, and it's what our community is all about, is taking these trucks. And maybe we sometimes guys will say, oh, you ruined it, but at the end of the day, you didn't ruin anything.
Classic Performance Products, CPP back. Joe, let's talk X10 spindles. Go.
One of our most popular parts through the years has been our 2.5-inch drop modular spindles. Really popular part. Well, we've kind of taken that to the next step. We've emulated late model Corvette, Silverado, Chevy technology into our new X10 drop spindles. They use a steel hub, sealed bearing hub, really strong piece. It's oversized bearings, definitely great for a guy using big brakes, big wheels, which I'm sure all your guys are.
You need a new spindle anyways. You're going to lower your truck. You're running a bigger wheel, a bigger brake. CPP's got it for you with their new X10 spindle. Joe, as always, thank you. CPP, classicperform.com. It's classicperform.com.
Sniper 2. Are you ready to switch out that old carb for a modern EFI system? Well, Holley has a solution for you. The all-new Sniper 2. This new system was redesigned from the ground up. Available in tumbled polished or black powder coat, and there's 3 available tuning interfaces. A classic 3.5 handheld, a 5-inch mountable, which includes a GPS speedo or a Bluetooth module so you can use your smartphone. Another big bonus is the Sniper 2 has a built-in transmission control module. So if you're looking to upgrade to a 4-speed overdrive, 4L60, 4L80, you now can with ease. Holley.com to get started today. Holley.com. Hey guys, let's face it. Your truck suspension is old, and your ride can be so much better. Discover QA1 and their full range of truck, suspension components, drop kits, and coilover conversion systems. QA1.net. That's QA1.net. Marquet has been in business for over 40 years. Marquet has grown to be one of the country's premier truck parts manufacturers. They have made their original parts from the original trucks. All parts are manufactured in-house in Oklahoma City, USA. They offer quality parts built by Americans for old American-made trucks. So when you're looking for body moldings, bed strips, bed wood, and so much more, think Marquet. That's mar-k.com. And it's what our community is all about, is taking these trucks. And maybe we sometimes guys will say, oh, you ruined it, but at the end of the day, you didn't ruin anything.
No, and that's another interesting point you bring up is I immediately know the people that don't get it when they say you ruined that truck. And that's fine that we don't see eye to eye. here's the thing about what I do and with the unique vehicles is I can appreciate people that build things back to original condition, and I can appreciate that and enjoy that. But if I own it, I'm modifying it. And I don't care if that hurts your feelings for the purists, because I'm not building it for anyone but myself, and yes, I do like the attention. I do like the likes, and I do like the interaction with people that come from it. But if I was just building this truck for the purists, I mean, it would have been restoring it back to brand new and repainting it. That's another thing, man. I learned years ago with repaints that I like to drive my stuff too much and not worry about weather, not worry about where I'm parking, to want to do that. And I like I said, I can appreciate those that do, and I love seeing really nice, shiny, expensive paint jobs on like lowriders. Man, one day I'm gonna have one, the multi panel paint and things like that. But I mean, for me in the cards right now, it's about putting miles on. I think I told you earlier, we've got quite a few miles on Rampy, so that it's, I guess, debut was at LS Fest last April, and we are just shy of 32,000 kilometers on it now. So about 18 months, it's about 20,000 miles we put on that. And we have, I don't know where your listeners are from, but we have 9 months of winter here where stuff doesn't get driven very often, and I put the miles on that, and I'm not afraid to drive it anywhere, because somebody door dings me, I won't even notice, to be perfectly honest with you. There is so many nicks and scratches on that Corvair that to me, it's character. I even had my friend Aileen, she pinstriped or hand painted on the back corner of the bed. It says, "Touch me," because the first thing you do when you lean over that truck is put your hands on it. Your snaps or your zippers are against the side. And I mean, I invite it, it's bring it on. And the same with Krusty. As soon as this is back on the road, which I imagine the snow is going to be on the ground by then, don't care. I'm driving it.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be cool. Well, did you you already knew you were going to change it up? You weren't going to, you're thinking of a name. Did you actually go to Deadwood, and you were rolling through South Dakota and you're like, oh shit, this is an aha moment? Or did you have already picked out a name or a few names, or kind of walk us through that?
I've had the name for about 6 or 8 months on my mind as far as changing it. And I'll be honest, I don't recall what event sparked that. It had nothing to do with the red line run going there. When I did commit to the red line run and saw that that's where it was going, I thought that was kind of unique and interesting. But I mean, as far as the name goes, I think it came from inside the topper, where it's collapsing down and it's got the wood paneling in there, and it's all, splintering and falling. And it just, I don't know, came to me.
Yeah, makes sense for sure. And then when you are going to add that wood grain trim, I did see you post that you were kind of playing around with some of the molding too. So that'll be good, and it'll be unique. Are you going to do anything with your slice? Are you going to try to airbrush it, touch it up, going to clear coat it, leave the scars? What's your plan?
So I would have loved to have been good enough at welding to leave that exposed and just clear coat it. But I'm grinding it down with one of those finger grinders or finger sanders, and just enough that it's going to require a very light skim of just a body glazing putty, probably. Like I honestly don't think there's enough there for Bondo, but just a slight skim. And I mean, I'm talking it's maybe 3/4 of an inch wide. And then I'll prime that and probably just black it out with a flat black primer, and just as wide as it has to be. And then I'm going to leave that. I want it to be shown. I want people to see that this was a long bit. Like I'm not trying to hide anything. Often people are like, oh man, it ain't worth as much money. It's like, I'm not doing this for,
who cares?
Who cares? Or, oh, now you can't haul around a piece of plywood. I mean, I think it's cool if you're using a 70s pickup as your daily driving work truck. But at the same time, I almost feel sorry for you if you were expecting that I'm going to be hauling a lift of lumber in the back of this thing. Like, are you kidding me? Like that, I'm not a car guy. I'm a truck guy. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to lower my trucks and make them so they're, more, I think, drivable and the stance and everything. the look that I want is not conducive to that of a work truck, and I'm 100% okay with that.
Well, and most guys have a other work truck, a real truck that's their daily or what. And the funny thing I laugh about that is I've got a '07 Classic that I bought, I've had it for, I guess, 16 years now, and it's a short bed. And I don't sit there and say, oh, because it's a crew cab short bed, say, oh, I wish I would have got the long bed, because I just haul wood around every day, and it's like I can put the tailgate down and haul wood around, but that's always what people are like, well, you cut it, now it's not as functional. It's fine.
Fine. And the thing is, even you can either haul the lumber with the tailgate down, or I don't know if they realize you can haul that plywood with the tailgate up, and it just hangs.
And usually when I'm buying plywood, I'm actually usually buying some sort of 2x4, 2x6, something that I can actually put, and I can lay all the wood right there on top of it. So, well, either way, it is funny. I actually did a post one time with Yellowstone, which was my 73 crew cab long bed. And I did have to pick up some 12 footers or something one day. And so I'm like, fuck it, I'm taking Yellowstone. So I run up the road, and I think I took a picture, and I probably had like 8 12 footers hanging off. And it's like, there you go. I couldn't haul the 12 footers with a shorty, with orange slice or something, but I could pull a trailer if I had to. What's that?
You still have that truck?
No, I sold it. So it went to Richard Rawlings, then Barrett, and then a guy named Sean out of Minnesota bought it, and now it's in Iowa. And the guy that has it in Iowa, I think Sean, Minnesota, who got it from Richard. Oh no, he won it at Barrett. He kept the camper because he's posted. We text back and forth, and he still has the OG camper, which is a 74 camper, and then he put a different topper like you have for Krusty. He put a different topper, a really nice like gem classic to that style. He put it on there, and then he sold it to the guy in Iowa. So usually every Good Guys Iowa in Des Moines there, I get 2 or 3 random posts or tags or pictures, because Yellowstone, and I called it Yellowstone Light because without the big camper, but when it was with the smaller camper, it looks great too, and it's so clean, and but yeah, long bed. Actually, if I could do it all over, and if I would have bought it back or whatever, that's exactly what I would have done. Is I would have shortened it and put big old hoops on it, and just had it lowered and made it a short bed. That would have been the next adventure, and people would have just lost their minds.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to, once I get this thing back on the road, which, I mean, really, I can put a tail light in and I could be driving this thing again. It's not like it's that disassembled, but in working with this sheet metal, it's created a drive in me as far as wanting to learn more about, fabricating with it and building with it. And I've seen a lot of trucks, and even at Dino's last year, where they have, I'm going to call it sheet metal art under the engine, in the engine bay, I guess is a better term, where they've fabricated their own inner wheel tubs, and they've created cover over the firewall and things like that. And I talked to my buddy who's really good at this, and he's on board to help me, figure out how to do that. I like speed holes, I like dimple dies. It's like with the straight 600 here, man, there's lots of room for creativity when it comes to that. So I'm excited to number one, just get better at fabrication and sheet metal work, but number two, just share it with people and show that even a big Neanderthal from Canada can do this stuff, so you can too.
So when you break into this motor, what's your plans? Are you gonna really break into it and rebuild it? Are you gonna freshen it up? What are you gonna do to it?
This truck has about, I think it's 80 or 90,000 miles on it right now, which I think is already like perfectly clearanced for a turbo. So we're doing nothing. I'm going to add some valve springs, and I don't know if these are heavy push rods in here or not, but we'll upgrade those. But other than that, it's like run it the way it is. And I'm going to look possibly at a 292 or 250, and then actually build it in case this one fails. I mean, it just depends on how, I am hard on things. So if it fails, it fails, and we'll just rebuild, but it will remain a 6-cylinder and 3. I mean, I don't even know if the 3-speed on the tree, if that'll withhold any type of horsepower. I mean, we won't have much traction anyway. So like I said, I think it'll be okay, but we'll just play that by ear, man.
Yeah, I can't remember. I'll find the picture. I have a video as well. Trying to think of his name. I interviewed him at the C10 Revival in I'll say it was like 21, and he's got a 68, and he kept the inline and turboed it, and I think he turboed it. I'm trying to think as I videoed it, but either way, this truck is just like high class truck, and he's like, nope, I'm keeping the inline 6, and you're like, all right, sweet. It might have been a 292 as well. I had a 292 and a 69, and they're just torquey little bastards. So yeah, if you could find one of those, and then like you said, it's not like you can't get replacement parts for a 250. I mean, a little inline 250, it'll be interesting. What size turbo are you putting on, did you say?
Actually, I don't even know. He just said that he had a fellow that had twin turbos on his truck, and one of them failed. So when they replaced them, they put 2 new ones on. He says, I've got the perfect turbo for that. And, you know, he's my tuner guy. He's everything. So I honestly just, all right, man, I trust you. And that's the one.
What's the gear in the rear? What rear end are you running?
I believe it's 411s in this. It's screaming at 70 miles an hour. So if I can't come up with the proper gear vendors for it, we may just put a taller gear in it to get those RPMs down so it's better. You know, I think with the turbo we could do that, because around town and stuff you'll just be in boost a little more to maintain with that higher gear, and then on the highway it'll just, you know, I want to cruise at 80 miles an hour. That's the whole point, is to be able to drive this thing. You know, if I had this thing together by the second week of November for Dino's, I'm driving it down there, man. Like that's the goal.
Good. I hope you get it done. Would you go 373s or like 354s, depending?
I would have to calculate what the RPMs. There is no RPM in this thing, so I would actually have to drive it right now with this tire height and just see where the RPMs are and then calculate it from there. But I'm guessing 373s, but I mean, I'm not opposed to 354s or 352 or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think you'd lose the torque, right? So you'd lose a little bit of the low end torque when you start getting, you know, taller and taller. Maybe you'll like it, like with the 410 or a 411 with the overdrive, you might be just right. Keep some of that low end pop, and then, you know, because it is funny to think like a 3-speed, even with a 4-speed, you know, it's like, well, a 4-speed's got such a granny that it's still really a 3-speed anyways, because it's like I remember the first time I taught my son how to drive a stick, and he's like, well, why don't I put it in first? It doesn't make any sense to me. I'll put it in first, watch what happens. He's like, rah! You know, not even going 5 miles an hour.
I'm not even sure like what that gear was for, you know, because even with a trailer hooked up, you know, you start in first, and it's so slow that you're barely rolling by the time you hit second anyway. So
it was literally like like you're 100%. It's like, it'd be interesting to have somebody on that was a master at those, because that gearing is so low that for me, I don't have that truck anymore, but I would start, if I ever did start in first, it was literally instant going to second. So you'd pop 1, pop 2 so fast that it didn't matter anyways. And the reverse was the same as your granny. So reverse was just brutal. Just you're so slow. I mean, it's almost like for the guys that have done any off-roading, when you're in like a low gear and you're in 4 low, you can almost get out and just freaking watch the vehicle, just because it's so low. It's not going anywhere fast at all.
It's funny, when I was on the farm as a kid, we had I believe it was a 1990 F250 3/4 ton 2-wheel drive that had a 5-speed in it. And, you know, it wasn't that granny low gear like that, but reverse was almost the speed in between first and second going forward was what it was going reverse. Like, I remember trying to back that thing up to a trailer, and I put more dents in that bumper and, you know, had wrecks with the jacks on the trailers, because you literally were in reverse at Mock Chicken, you know, blind. There was no backup cameras then. You were literally, you know, you pull ahead a little bit, you get out and there's 6 feet. You pull back a little bit and you've overshot it. You know, there was no in between back then. So it was that truck, I remember we actually sold that one because it was so terrible to hook up to trailers.
Yeah, it is funny. Just I still do that. My camera's out on my truck and it's like, get out, get back, get out, get back. It's a true test of patience, right? And you're like, God damn it, I'm so close. I'm just off. And if it's a trailer that you can't move, like I'll drag my trailer over, and it is a pain. It's such a waste of time. It's so frustrating when like I said, I have an '07 Classic. I had a camera hooked up aftermarket and I think it just got fried by the sun or something. So it doesn't even work anymore. And I'm like, God damn it, I need to get my camera back.
Yeah.
I love the interior. Where'd that come from? You got some buckets and you had them redone?
Yeah. So Facebook Marketplace, fine for the Blazer buckets. And, the bench seat is in immaculate shape in this thing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's not even broke out on the driver's side. Like, sometimes you got to carry around a really heavy mitten or something to put under your left ass cheek so you sit straight in those trucks, right? But this one, it's still intact. But I've always liked bucket seats in pickups with the center console. I just think it looks cool and you can get them sitting really low. And it just looks, in my opinion, aesthetically it just looks better to me. And, they came with that, I believe it's houndstooth is what GM called it, seat covers on them, but they were blue and yellow, which if this truck was blue, they were in actually pretty good shape. I probably would have just left them. But when we looked at the colors available in kind of an orange and brown and stuff, I wasn't really feeling what was offered in the GM patterns. And then just Google searching, we came across the Volkswagen Westphalia plaid, where it's got, it's kind of got a green stripe in it. It's orange, it's dark orange, it's brown, and it just, well, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, that's it, man. Like, that's it. So my buddy that owns a upholstery shop here in Lethbridge, he ordered it up, and I remember him calling me the day. He's like, hey man, you got to come check this stuff out, so I ripped over there and I was just like, I love it. I hope it matches, so I brought it over here. And I mean, I think it looks great. It's just, in my opinion, just ugly enough that it makes you look twice at it. It's like, oh, you know what? That is pretty trick.
Yeah, I think it definitely pops and it stands out. And when you get the molding on with your wood, wood grain side and the camper and the whole thing, it'll all start coming together. It's definitely got that pop.
Yeah. We've got the center console out right now and the door panels off because we're, staining or painting those to all match kind of the side panels of the seats. That's the thing, when you do that stuff with upholstery, you have like this tiny little 1 inch by 1 inch swatch that you're trying to match. I tried to come, because even from factory, the door panels don't match the dash on these trucks. Like, it's close, but with sun fading and things like that, like, these are two totally different colors. So I kind of picked what I thought was the best in between. And it ended up being a lot lighter once it's on the seats, which is fine. But now we're just, I'm dyeing or painting, whatever they call it, the door panels, which are in excellent shape, just really sun faded. And the center console, it came with the Blazer seats. And then the dash is in, it's okay condition. It's cracked. So I don't know if the thing is to just buy one of those caps that you can get from LMC and paint that to match, or if I should just replace that whole dash pad. I mean, we'll cross that bridge when I come to it.
Yeah, depending on your upholstery guy too. A guy here locally, Dom, I always kind of laugh because when I see a redone dash pad, he'll take those and he redoes them. He reupholsters them. They look so good. So you get, which is cool, and because with a square body, especially the early square dash, it's going to crack. Obviously, your speaker holes are going to crack. If that might have been even a low enough model that didn't have a speaker in the middle. But a lot of times, for us in Arizona, you get all the cracking. But it does look very good when you can take an old dash and he just tears it all apart, gets the frame, and then reupholsters it in that, either that vinyl or that leather, kind of matches your seat, because you've got your plaid and then you've got your vinyl, and then with the door pan, and you brought up a great point. These trucks did not match. So your wood, so your tan, your deer, what was it? Not deer, buckskin, your buckskin, your tan, whatever it was. That was a different tan on your door panels and your dash pad. Your wood grain is going to be different from your door panels to your bezel, and this shit just didn't match. Now we're so spoiled where every single thing matches just right, and you can have fun with that.
Yeah, and this had a rubber floor. Well, still has the rubber floor, but I did order a carpet kit that matches the vinyl of the seats. I mean, I want to take this out and I want to put the Dynamat in there and get it sealed up well enough where it's a little quieter going down the road. And, like I say, just build it to drive it.
Is that something where the old boy that had it, is he still around? And would you ever take it back to show him the truck? Hey guys, are you thinking about swapping out your old motor for a more reliable LSLT based power plant? We've got great news for you. PSI Conversion is offering our listeners 10% off your order. Behind each PSI harness, you get over 10 years of experience in the business, online tech support, phone support, and harnesses made in the U.S. That's psiconversion.com. And don't forget, use code C10TALK and save 10% today.
Since the 1960s, US Mags has held the title for the longest-running custom wheel tradition. Experience the wheels that made history and set the trends for American truck culture for decades to come. From cast wheels to full custom 1- and 2-piece forged wheels, US Mags keeps you and your truck in mind with every new design and model. Our cast wheel series are designed specifically for Chevy trucks and are stocked and ready to ship, giving you the wheels you need when you need them with perfect fitment. Set your ride apart with our custom forged wheels, available in just about any finish and fitment desired. US Mags are guaranteed to distinguish your style and attitude from the rest.
Hey guys, I've got Andrew from Painless Wiring on. Andrew, what's the latest?
Just working on producing these GM truck harnesses. They're our best moving vehicle specific, and we're just, super excited to be able to service such a great community of truck guys.
Made in the USA. You guys are probably cranking them out nonstop. A ton of our audience is out there buying these trucks, building these trucks, and they know, hey, Painless Performance has got me taken care of.
Factory options, aftermarket stuff. If you have any questions, call our tech guys. They'll walk you through anything you need to know, and we'll make sure your truck gets wired up right the first time.
If you want to clean up your underdash, you want to clean up your chassis, it's that easy. Painlessperformance.com, painlessperformance.com. Thanks, Andrew. Is that something where the old boy that had it, is he still around? And would you ever take it back to show him the truck?
So he was still around because when I bought it off his neighbor. This fellow bought it because he thought he would fix it up and drive it, and then he just never did. But it sat for 9 years in the old fellow's backyard under a tree.
But this is the neighbor that bought it from him, and then okay.
Yeah, so the neighbor bought it, and I bought it off of him, but got all the original stuff from the original owner as far as the paperwork and things like that. So, I mean, if he's still around, I know exactly where he lives, and that it would be so fun to just drive by there and show him what I've done with it.
Yeah, he would not even think it was the same truck, and I think it'd put a big smile on his face.
Yeah, 100%. That's
let him take it for a rip after you turbo it.
Oh, 100%. That's like one of my favorite things about Rampy is having people come up to me, and I'm talking, 70, 80-year-olds come up to me in public and telling me the stories of when they drove, the similar truck or van and used it, on a daily basis and put tons of miles on, and they think it's so cool to see one out on the road. I mean, that's, to me, I love the fact that I can't drive really any of the vehicles I have that are classics, I'll call, and not have a conversation at the gas pump, that takes way longer than it should, because they just spark up conversation and interest.
Well, especially, yeah. I mean, obviously Rampy's, that is such a unique, and then really to think that you got it when you didn't think you were going to get it, and you ended up with it, and then you did what you did. And, like you said, you get a lot of conversations from the different builds that you have in your style, and you have to kind of trust that. I think you nailed it where you're like, hey, I don't build it for them. I build it for me. And people can get online and keyboard warrior and talk shit and say whatever. Head them on over to the complaint department. You're probably going to get a busy signal because we got a lot of complaints, but we don't care. And just have fun, because that's what it's all about, is these visions that you have. Do you change the vision? Do you write it down and you build it in your head, or maybe have a rendering done? And then do you feel like that's just kind of an evolution, or do you feel like you don't set yourself up and it's just flow as I go?
So I typically will have a picture in my head of what it will look like as far as style and stance. That is the initial thought to me is how can I get this thing looking a little more cocky and looking where it's like you look at it, it's like the saying where if you don't drive a vehicle that you turn back and look at before you walk into a store, you're driving the wrong vehicle. I mean, that rings very true with me. It's not about other people seeing it necessarily. It's about, man, I just like looking at that, and I've made many mistakes over the years where it's like, shit, that's the wrong wheel and tire combo. What have I done? Like I just dropped $3 or $4 on that and I hate it, so with my builds, in more recent years, I kind of have a picture in my head, and with the experience of making the mistakes, I don't say I always make the right choice, but I have a pretty good idea of where it's going to end up. And then like with this one here, it's now escalating to the turbo and different things. But at the end of the day, it doesn't need that to be what I like. It could stay this straight 6.3 on the tree. I've shortened it. I'll put my trim on, I'll put the wood grate on, and I would love this truck just as much as I will when it's turboed. It'll just be a little funner to drive.
Yeah, and again, I mean, like you said, it's like you learn as you go and you have so much fun. When you look at it, you've got your seats, you're still going to play around with your dash, whether or not, that's your top 10 of your list. What's next? What do you see as being, your top 3 things that you're trying to get knocked out?
So I would say get the interior done. I'm gonna label that as number 2. The first thing is to get the trim on and get the wood grate on. I'll put that all into one because that completes the look for me. And then get the interior to the point where it's comfortable and user friendly and just looks finished. I don't want to drive this around with no door panels on it. I will drive stuff that isn't completed to enjoy it in the meantime, but I really like to finish something to a point where it's like, man, this could be done if I didn't want to do this other stuff. Like as it is right now, anybody could grab the keys to this truck and drive it without, oh, you got to do this first and don't forget to do this, so number 1, get the exterior done. Number 2, the interior. And number 3, before the turbo and stuff, would be, man, if I could make it to Dino's in it this year, that would be incredible.
Yeah, that would be, I mean, and you would drive it the whole way.
Absolutely.
So the biggest decision I think you've got to make, I wonder if you've already made it, because when it comes to wheels on a truck like this, once you've got your stance figured out, then you're like, okay, I'm drawn into my wheels, is front and rear bumpers, because front and rear bumpers on these trucks are such a pivotal thing where they're you've got a white topper with a white wheel, and you're almost forced to kind of do a white bumper, and then rear stepper and so on and so forth. So what's your thoughts on your bumper situation?
Oh, I actually love the bumpers that came with this truck. It's got a white front bumper that's got enough scratches. It's not bent, it is straight. And it's got a rear stepper bumper, but it's not the, I don't know what. Up here, we had a manufacturer called Neufeld that made all the bumpers for these C10 trucks that you see around. They kind of had some of that diamond or checker plate on there, not shiny, but just painted right. But this is an actual stamped white rear bumper that's a step bumper that's super cool, and it's rusty, not through, just surface rust, but it looks incredible. It fits the truck, and I'm actually just need to drill the holes in that shortened bit of the frame now to mount it back on.
Yeah, the other thing, because you are doing so much, I love, again, the white bumpers are just such a win on that truck, and I love the white bumpers. White bumpers just look so great. But on those, if you can, since you're having so much fun, and you can throw on your front bumper, but look at, I can send you some different stuff, but look at maybe cutting that front ram horns off, and then it looks really good because you get to tuck that front bumper in like 2 more inches. So when you put your front bumper on, you're like, oh man. And then you're like, I wish it would tuck a little bit further, and then cutting that front of that frame, because you're like, well, I've already cut it anyway, it doesn't really matter. And then cut it and then tuck that bumper up all the way.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, man. But yeah,
when you put that front bumper on, you'll see it. You'll see it for sure, and you're gonna be like, all right, and because you can do that too with your rear bumpers as well. So you can really push them up so tight, and it just looks clean, right? Where you don't have quite that gapping.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So Krusty's going to become Deadwood. If everything kind of works out over the next 6 weeks, you'll come down to the get down. You've got a lot to do. What's next? So you've got, once you get Deadwood 10 back up and running, you get most of it done, the interior, the seats. You got other projects you're, in line right now, or are you just do you just try to drive what you actually have finished, like you said, and then have fun just like you did with Rampy?
Yeah. So the goal for this would be to, get it done and just drive it as, obviously divide the time between Rampy and this. But as far as projects go for work, we're going to pull the 79 Bronco off the lift here. I have a donor truck. It's a 2014 F-150 with a Coyote in it with very, very low miles. It hit a couple horses fresh out of the gate, and somehow they didn't have insurance on it. And so it sat in a barn for a number of years. So using that driveline, engine, transmission, transfer case, and putting that into the 79 Bronco, and I'm building that one for my daughter. So I kind of have given each one of my kids a vehicle. It's the Land Cruisers are my boys. Dagan, my oldest daughter, is going to have the Bronco. And it essentially, to me, is I'm not real good at saving money. I like to build stuff. I like to buy different things, and in the end at the end of the day, to be able to help my kids out when needed, I've got these vehicles where it's like, hey, look, if you ever get in a position in your life where you need some money, then let's sell this thing. Let's not put sentimental value on anything, because these vehicles have some money and my time invested in them, but they're definitely worth a lot more now than they were when I bought them. And so, even with my kids, it's like, look, this will always be a revolving loan with you, where if you get in a position where you need some money, you drive that thing back to my house, I'll cut you a check for 10 grand, and then you pay it off. When it's paid off, you can come back and pick it up. And if you don't pay it off, then I just got a smoking deal buying my own truck back,
Yeah. Yeah. The work. You're like, hey, I know the guy that built this. I like his work. Or maybe I don't like his work at the time. I like the work I do now better.
Yeah. For me, I don't know, man. It seems like it's an investment where I think you have to use that term loosely in talking with vehicles. I've definitely put more time into these vehicles and money than they'd ever be worth in the end. But I would have spent that money on other stuff anyway that means nothing. So for me to have something that me and my kids can enjoy together and maybe, get them out of a bind in the future. I mean, you look at, for example, people starting out that have to pay rent and, don't have a home right now. And I don't know how they're doing it.
I know. And they're living with mom and dad. That's exactly what they're doing. Or they're working 3 jobs just to pay somebody else's money or mortgage. But I think it's cool that you, like you said, it's like, hey, I'm going to build this. I do think that you're setting them up for the perspective of the sentimental, because in my mind, they're going to be like, well, yeah, this is my dad built this. My dad gave it to me. And so they're never going to want to get rid of it. But like you said, it's like, oh, you can get rid of it, but I get first crack at it, and probably the only crack at it. Right. And I'm going to buy it back. And, so they have that evolution. And like you said, there is a revolving door there where it's like, hey, if you want it, you buy it back. I kind of have a unique perspective on that. And I'm the same way. I have too many vehicles, and I think, okay, each kid gets a vehicle for sure. But my through marriage, I guess it'd be my father-in-law, his wife, through marriage, father-in-law's wife's dad was a big Ford guy. Okay. So he had like 6 or 7 Model A's, Model T's, the whole 9 yards. Right. Well, then when he passed, each kid got 2 vehicles. One got donated to the Historical Society because it was in every parade for like 60 years. And then each kid, because there was 3 kids, got 2 vehicles. Well, I believe each kid sold one and kept one. And I just laugh because I don't laugh. I guess it's almost kind of sad, but my father-in-law, every day I see him, or I go to, in his garage or whatever, and there's that, I think he's got the 36 or whatever. And I'm like, when are you guys going to take this out? So the point being is, if you could incorporate for the audience the build with your kids and that process, or for the Canadians, the process, it's that is funner and more of the journey. Whereas maybe they don't have any skin in the game, and they're like, oh, well, here, dad just gave me this C10, or he gave me whatever. And they might not, because I see that with the kids that I'm talking about in this position. And I don't know that they really take out these vehicles that much and enjoy them. And I think that there's that fine line where somebody is going to, like the neighbor of Krusty, he wanted to build it. And it's like, hey, I want you to take it out. I want you to drive it. If you're not going to drive it, I don't want it sitting in the garage just taking up space.
Yeah. I'd sooner they sell it if it's just going to sit. There's with my kids, like my son Dax, his is this FJ40 Land Cruiser here. He helped me do the V8 swapping. I mean, I was trying to teach him a budget build, but that was completely backfired. You cannot do a budget build small block Chevy swap anymore because it costs too much money to make it what I would consider reliable by, doing the Holly fuel injection and just doing the things to where it's like, this is usable. My daughter helped me do some body work and paint on the Bronco. And then, we put the vinyl on it, that sunset stripes on it, which really made that thing pop. And, she's down in Idaho, actually in university right now. And maybe during Christmas time, she'll be able to come and spend some time in the shop with me, and we spent probably a week and a half together sanding that thing. And I'll just tell you what a great opportunity to just have some one-on-one uninterrupted time with your kids working on a vehicle. Number one, they find out exactly who you are because all the swears come out, there's no holds barred when you bash your knuckles or when you screw something up when you're working on a vehicle in the shop. And it was neat to get that kind of closer relationship with each one of my kids, outside of the home and outside of sports and outside of things like that, where this is what I do and what I love to do on a daily basis. I try and get my work done by noon every day as far as the speedometer stuff goes, because number one, I want to transition into a full-time content creator by next June and have my main guy here take over my position at the speedometer business and, still run the business, but be completely, separate from it and just build things. We've had a number of companies fortunately reach out to us over this last year that are willing to help with the Bronco. We've probably got 75 to 85% of that Bronco as far as parts go covered because they like to see me doing stuff on social media. Number one, I love doing it. Number two, filming it doesn't take that much longer. The editing takes a little time, but at the end of the day, if it drives me to just get another step done, another stage done that next day or that week, I mean, it's beneficial all around. And then to have people stepping up and wanting to help out, we have Michael Pro Tools, for example, has sent us a number of different tools just based on, man, we really like what you do. We'd love to send you this stuff, And so having my kids see the transition from, just doing this as a hobby, that this is actually could be a reality as a full-time gig, man, very fortunate. I feel very blessed in that aspect.
Well, and good for you. And the thing about that to reinforce is really what you said is sometimes you might question yourself, but whether it's Rampy, whether it's the FJ40, whether it's the Bronco, whether it's Krusty / Deadwood 10, is the vision is fun and you should trust your vision because some people have it, some people don't, right? Some people just, they, and they kind of crash and burn and maybe they reach out to other people who have it and they can sort and they say, okay, this is what I want to do. But if you think about just as of, let's just call it the last 2 years of what you've been able to do, and even buying old trucks that now will be content in the future is just fun. And it does make it so that reality, that vision can become a reality, whether or not you're an influencer or not. It's still passion is passion and you love doing what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, the benefits that I kind of rate as number one is like meeting people like you and Dino, for example. You know, I went to Dino's Get Down last year knowing absolutely no one. And the amount of people that I've met and people that I've, you know, maintained contact with from that alone, you know, there was more on the social media side of things, more growth at the 2 days of Dino's Get Down than there was the week prior. And I've got flies flying all around me right now.
For the audience, he's doing the fly swat. I call that the bee dance. So in the fire department, we get called the bee calls, where there's like swarming bees, and you just freaking, you're doing the bee dance down the road, and you're just swatting like crazy, man. We have bee suits too. We'll wear our turnouts, but yeah, I've been stung a few times on bee calls. It's not fun.
Yeah,
so he's doing the bee dance. He's in the shop. He's got Deadwood 10 sitting behind him, and yeah, he's doing the bee dance.
Yeah,
it's too cold in Canada for flies to be hanging around. When is it? I mean, so obviously October, as a kid for me, you know, growing up in Montana, October was always fun because I knew at that point by Halloween I could wear, you know, a costume and not sweat my balls off. Whereas in Arizona, you know, we're still sweating in October, but it should start to break there pretty soon, right?
Yeah, so we're definitely like full swing fall now. You know, leaves are falling off the trees, and the air, you know, the ambient temperature is definitely cooler. Like, it's still warm. It's in the 70s today. I think it's supposed to be close to 80 tomorrow, but later in the week it'll be in the 60s. And then, you know, by November, you know, we could have snow any day, really. Like, I've been the second week in September, we've had 2 foot of snow before, you know, so we're fortunate right now that we're having a really nice fall, and it's actually not just jumping from summer to winter. But you know, when I prepare to come south, especially this year, if I can make it to Dino's, either way, I'm going to make it, whether I fly down or drive this down, I'll be there. But I could be driving through some serious snow on the way down there.
What you need to do is you need to bring it. Unfortunately, it would be too long of a time that I say bring it and leave it with me, and then come to the reunion, which is our show in March, and then you'll get the full spring, and then you can drive it back. See, you'd have the come down, and then, but you probably, that 4 or 5 months would just be time where you'd want to, I assume once you get it home, turn the heater on in the shop and have a good time and wrench away and finish things up.
Yeah. I mean, it would all depend on, I definitely don't want this to take time away from, like, I've kind of got, I don't have deadlines because I work on my own stuff, but I do have goals in myself. Kind of the idea is when I get back from Dino's Get Down, that's when I start on the Bronco, and I get that engine and transmission swapped in that and done in that, so that by February that truck is driving, because I'm not doing anything body wise. You know, I've got original seats and stuff that we're going to get recovered, but I mean, the body's in good enough shape and original condition that it's literally just get that thing so it's getting better than 7 miles per gallon, because it's got a 410 stroker in it right now with a 4-speed, and it is horrible on fuel and really gutless too. I mean, I know the FE crowd out there with Ford, oh, they're great, they're tons of torque. Well, I'm not pulling stumps with it, so I don't care. I want to drive it, and you can't afford to drive that. You drive that thing around for a day, and it's $85-$90 in fuel, and that's not even dry. That's not on a road trip. That's just driving around town.
Well, and if she's at college, right, down there in Idaho, then or lives down there or whatever, she might want to, you know, make some trips, and you're, like you said, it's like just blowing through fuel.
Yep. Yeah. No, it'll be fun to see that on the road and see her enjoying it. So that's
well, after that's done, we'll have you on the Bronco podcast, and we'll get the full scoop on that one.
Oh, 100%, man.
Yeah. No. Okay. So for the audience, where's the best place for them to watch your content, not only your social, but your YouTube?
So it's Dick Industries Inc. across all platforms, and make sure you have Inc. INC at the end, because a year ago, April, my Dick Industries account on Instagram was hacked, and I lost all access to it, and it really created a negative impact towards my followers, because it's just a scammer that's slinging Bitcoin, and not talking bad about Bitcoin. Some people invested in that and done very well, but this is a scammer slinging Bitcoin. And I think scammers are the ultimate scum of the earth. There's really no room on this earth for people like that. That, you know, I mean, I had about 3,400 followers, and I thought I was, you know, winning the game, you know, at that point, right? You know, it was, we had some blue check mark followers like Brian Scotto, for example, from Hoonigan. And I was like, man, this is awesome. You know, and I talked to those boys and had some dealings with them. And then all of a sudden on our way to Dino's Get Down, I had my son's teacher shoot me a message. Hey, I'm shooting for this ambassadorship. Would you vote for me? And I said, absolutely. But I don't click links, because here I am thinking I'm the smart guy, right? You know, I don't click links. Like, oh no, you don't have to click links. You just have to, you know, I'll send a link to your phone. You just have to take a screenshot of it and send it, you know, to the messenger here, and away we go. And I mean, like an idiot, I fell for that. And it was the, you know, in case you lost your password on Instagram, for example, and you ask for that link, then I copied that link, and with that photo, they were able to just enter that in, and they were able to go in and change my password. And I'm a little bit of an idiot when it comes to technology and the two-factor authenticity, or whatever you call it. And at that time, I just ignored that. And I'm telling you right now, do not ignore that.
Yeah.
You know, care of that, do your homework and do that, because I literally started day one of LS Fest 2022 with 0 followers. And, you know, it since then has leaps and bounds, you know, from there. I think it was just more, at the time I wasn't sure how to rebuild. So I just started filming everything and started filming my daily duties that I was doing. And from there, we've really grown. You know, I'm hoping that we hit over 100,000 by the end of December on Instagram. And, you know, it's Facebook, it's TikTok, it's Instagram, and now what's the new one on Instagram? That Threads. I think, and YouTube. It's Dick Industries Inc. across all platforms. It has a black and white photo of me, and you know, that's it. So if you're following a different Dick Industries page, it's probably not me.
And for the audience, you know, if you're working your butt off on your social, just get that 2-point factor authenticity thing, because it doesn't really cost you anything. And if you talk to the people who have been hacked and lost their accounts, so on and so forth, it's, I mean, anytime somebody steals from another person, it's, to me, that's, like you said, that's the scum of the earth. That's just such a shitty feeling, where you work on something that's yours and somebody just takes it and feels that they can take it. And that's all they're doing. They're just hacking and taking, and then, you know, it'll put a bad taste in not only the author or the owner, but then all of a sudden people will be like, who the fuck is this guy? He's posting Bitcoin. He's posting, you know, chicks, this, you know, so I see it all. I see guys that get hacked, and you're like, dude, I'll send them a picture or something. A lot of times it comes up on Facebook, and I'll be like, hey, Wayne, did you just get hacked? Because I always like for a while it was like, is this you in the video? Because people always want to see themselves, right? Or I think this is from this time. Do you recognize this person? You know, or whatever it is. And you're like, I'm not clicking on any of that shit. It sucks. And it's only going to get worse.
It's only getting worse. And even from my friends that send me links, or even if it's a video link where you can see the thumbnail of the video, I always call them up. I'm like, hey, did you just send me this? All right, now I'll click on it if it's legit, because it's, you know, once bitten, twice shy, right? So I just, you know, caution you if you're in this game and it means something to you. And I mean, it was really unfortunate that I had a number of people that thought I was, you know, really successful with this Bitcoin scam that they were slinging, right? Guys, really?
You're like, I wish I was just killing it on Bitcoin, but I'm not. I'm buying old trucks and having a good time.
I'd love it if I was actually depositing 15, 16 grand a day because of, you know, so-and-so helping me invest in Bitcoin. But I mean, you know, it just, the old saying, if it's too good to be true, it probably is, you know?
Yeah. All right. For the audience out there, if you want to check out Krusty, aka Deadwood 10, coming around the corner, you want to check out the Ramp truck, the 62 Ramp truck, and you haven't seen it, then I don't know what planet you're sitting on, because the thing's everywhere. And then also some other fun to do stuff. You can check it out, Dick Industries Inc. We appreciate your time, bro.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on, man. For real.
No, that's awesome. That's a wrap. That's a wrap. Taking it out in style. Wayne, thanks again so much for sitting down. Had a great time chatting it up with you. Hopefully safe travels out to Cali. You'll probably be tuning into this at about the same time you're trekking down there. So hopefully everything goes well out there. And they love Rampy. I know I do. And you keep kicking ass with that truck. And I don't know, eventually I think once you make it to the top level, you get some money and maybe your own Hot Wheels. So we all know that Rampy needs to be a Hot Wheels. It kind of already is, right? I mean, think about it. Either way, great time chatting it up with Wayne. For you guys out there, have a great week. If you are getting your trucks ready, whatever show, whatever event, keep us tuned in, keep us plugged in, tag us, let us know how everything's going. October 20th and 21st, the C10 Fall Revival out in North Carolina. And then the Big Daddy, the one, the only, Dino's 13th annual Get Down, November 10th and 11th. Glendale, Arizona. All right, guys, thanks again. C10 Talk out.